All right, everybody say faith. Everybody say real faith. You know, if I could figure out how to bring my other grandkids here and I could move here, I'd move here. I think this is a great church. If you're not a member of this church, raise your hand. You're not a member and you'd like to join this morning, okay? That is awesome. I think is not the worship incredible? You've got great worship. Your staff is great. And it kind of reminds me of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah, I'd go woo. They lost Westbrook. And you know, it's kind of like your church for a time being has lost the Westbrook from the pulpit. So which means your staff has to step up and play a better game. Would you agree that your staff is doing a great job? Amen? I'd clap for them. Now, I'm praying that the Thunder gets through Memphis. There's odds that it ain't going to happen. But if it does, I would take great joy for the Spurs to do what you did to us last year. And now that you've lost Westbrook, we've got a great shot. So everybody say faith. If you've got something to write on and write with, I want you to get it out right now. Now, for you that didn't bring it, that's not my problem, it's yours. I know that Jeremy gives you great notes and great things, but I want to give you some great things about faith. We're going to look at several deals, and when 11:50 rolls around, I'll let you know where I am. Tonight, I have a great word for this church. Everybody needs to be here tonight. I hope next Wednesday that when it says you could be a match, you could save someone's life. I hope next Wednesday when I call that there are 1,000 people that show up. And then when you get done, you'll go to Bible study. That would be even better. But you know what I told Jeremy? It would be so incredible if there was a match in this church for Trey that would work, that would help. And so pray for that. And again, everybody in this world lives with some kind of faith. Everybody. There's great faith. There's little faith. There's no faith. There's much faith. There's some faith. But everybody in this room lives with some kind of faith. Everybody say faith. Now, before we open up scripture and you yell, I hope that you do. In fact, when I'm here next Sunday on Mother's Day and he opens up the Bible, I'm going to run around the room on Mother's Day. That will be awesome. So, and if I'm the only one, do you think it'll bother me? Yeah, there you go. Of course, that's on TV. If he watches this, we're in trouble, or whatever camera they're doing. But here's the deal. Everybody say faith. You know, even atheists and agnostics, whether they believe in God, they do have faith. But you understand that you've got to have more faith not to believe in God than to believe in God. So everybody say faith. Now, let me give you a couple thoughts. Here it is. Here's what real faith is. Everybody say real faith always gets God's attention. Now write that down. Because if you're going through something, and by the way, last night I was at Jeremy's house and he was reading through, he's got several friends, several people who it's come out of the woods, people that are in need of great faith for their children. I just noticed, I think Dave is a nephew or somebody, and their faith has got to become stronger. And so even in the bombing that happened in Boston, 8-year-old little boy walks over, hugs his dad, completes the marathon, hugs his dad, walks over, sits with the mom and his little sister. It wasn't a couple minutes later, the first bomb went off, evidently pretty close to where they were sitting, and his sister loses her leg. The 8-year-old little boy is dead. The mom has some brain damage, and right now they need some incredible faith. Then you go, I just drove in through Waco. I do a camp in Latham Springs. I'll do 2 camps this summer. And I drove through at West where that explosion happened. And we drove as close as we could get, me and my road manager and his wife. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it's just incredible what I saw, how far that explosion went. And right now in that town, they need some. Here's the deal, guys. You better make sure before you leave this place that you've got real faith. So everybody say real faith. Everybody say faith always gets God's attention. You think Jeremy's got God's attention, yes or no? You think Emily's got his attention? You think you have got God's attention? And guys, for you that are not wearing this bracelet, ever since I put it on, I've not taken it off. I'll take all these other ones off when I work out. The other day I was at the doctor taking some tests and they wanted me to take off this bracelet. I said, it ain't going to happen. I said, either I don't take the test or you get, but it ain't coming off. And this bracelet is not coming off until I see Trey bugging me again, calling me knucklehead and shoving me and hitting whatever. I mean, I would take all that right now. But this is the bottom line. Every time I wear these bracelets, and especially to pray for Trey, everybody wants to know, what's the story? Are you ready? It's a story of... That's the bottom line. So here's the deal, guys. I want you to understand that faith always, and I'm going to show it to you, always gets God's attention. Faith always does, write this down, faith always does and sees the unexpected. I mean, I'm going to tell you, there have been times, we've had some great things happen with Trey that shouldn't have happened. Last week, his temperature went to 107. Blood pressure was as low as it could get. Jeremy called me. He said, Dad, if you pray now. His heart rate was incredible. But can I tell you, I just Facebooked him last night. He was picking his nose while I talked to him and having a great time. Are you ready? That just shows you what faith can do. And so right now, the circumstance, write this one down. Everybody say faith. Come on, be strong. Say faith always gets God's attention. Always sees and does the unexpected. And here's the third one. And Jeremy has been saying this a lot to me lately. Everybody say faith doesn't believe what circumstances tell you. Now, I'm not being ugly, but everybody ought to have their Bible. Everybody ought to, that's the book of faith right there. And see, guys, for us just to pray flippantly for things. You know what I tell people? You pray for Trey like he would be your own little boy. How many of y'all have somebody Trey's age? Raise your hand. Grandson. Pray for him like he's Trey, and you'll pray differently. You see, a lot of people, we just become flippant in our prayers. Years ago, I was a youth pastor in Pasadena, Texas, and this little boy was born, they thought he was going to die, stayed in the hospital 5, 6, 7 months, and every week we would stop and pray for this little boy. And finally, about the third week, I guess God could tell my attitude wasn't good. And God said, let me ask you something. He said, and he calls me Freeman. I call him God. We're tight. It's good. He said to me, if that was Josh or Jeremy, one of my boys, he said, would you pray any differently? And I told him, I said, you doggone right I would. And in fact, I said, I wouldn't be at this church. I'd be right there where he was. He said, then you need to pray as that little boy was one of yours. Do you think I prayed any differently? See, here's the deal. For Jeremy and for Emily, for me, my wife has got some physical things going on right now, just a lot of stuff going on. And then this thing with Trey is hitting her pretty hard. But here's the bottom line. If you want to pray for our, that's the key. Because in our weakness, he becomes stronger. And let me go ahead and tell you, Jeremy is about as weak as you're going to get. I'm about as weak. We may look, but here's the deal. In our weakness, in our hurt, in our pain, can I go ahead and tell you, he becomes strong. So everybody say faith. Always gets God's attention, does the unexpected, and can't believe what circumstances tell you. There was a little boy at a baseball game, and his team was out in the field, and some pastor came up and said, hey, what's the score? And he said, we're getting beat 26-0. The little boy was grinning. He said, dude, you're losing. He said, yeah, but we ain't got the bat yet. Are you ready? That is real. Let me show you what faith, here's what faith is. Look, if you would, Hebrews chapter 11. Go there quickly. Somebody, yeah, thank you. Young people have gotten tired of it, I guess. I appreciate the adults carrying on. Everybody say faith. Here's what faith is. Go to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Now I know, and here's the deal. If you get a chance, read the whole chapter 11. It is the book, it's the chapter of faith. Can I tell you, in this chapter, there were murderers, prostitutes, there were womanizers, there were liars, cheaters, all in the book, this book of faith, or this Hebrews chapter 11. He never mentioned any of their failures. He only talked about their, if you're listening, say I am. There are two things God looks at. Say your heart, say your faith. I'll show you that in a moment. Watch this. What is faith? Hebrews 11, when I'm reading from the New Living Translation, I realize Jeremy has the ESV because he's smarter, but here we go. It says, what is faith? Here it is. It is a confident assurance that what we hope for is going to happen. It is the evidence of things that we cannot yet see. So here's what faith is. Are you ready? Faith is what we can't see. Amen? You know, Cynthia's not here today, Emily's mother-in-law, and she's battling cancer. So you think, I know that Emily's sister, I just went blank, but Emily's sister, I just went blank. Jeannie, they're in the hospital still, correct? With their baby, and fighting some of the same things. Now, theirs is probably going to be a little bit easier right now. There's a lot more medical things, but here's the deal. Think about what that family right now is going through. And can I tell you, you've got to continue to pray for their every day. For the last month, I wake up 3 and 4 times through the night. And every time I wake up, you know the first thing that I do? I pray for Trey. I mean, we need a miracle. But here's the bottom line, guys. Trey's okay. January the 8th, he got his spiritual birthday. He let everybody know about it. Doctor, even the doctor that's not a Christian, Trey witnessed to him. And do you understand that Trey is safe with, no matter what happens? I just like to keep him around here for a while. But this is the bottom line, guys. Our worrying is not going to help your... You don't want to miss tonight. Everybody say faith. Look at this. What is faith? It is the confident assurance that what we hope for, it's going to happen. It is the evidence of things that we cannot yet see. Look at verse 2. God gave his approval to the people in the days of old because of their... So are you ready? Write this down. This is what faith is. Everybody say faith is what you can't see. Now write this down. Faith is the confidence in God. I love this. Faith is confidence in God. I like this. That leads to obedience to God. Real faith causes me and you to obey God. Now I can go ahead and say some things that Jeremy would like to say, but he probably can't or won't. I will. It may affect the offering, love offering, and you may not like me, and I don't care. Are you ready? When you decide not to tithe, do you understand that this staff and this church operates because of your gifts and your service to the church? So do you understand that if this church decided not to tithe anymore, this church is done? Do you understand that? That this church, like a business, operates by how people give. And here's the bottom line. When my wife, I left Saturday morning, I left our tithe check on our kitchen counter. I said, babe, please put that in Sunday. I'm not there. So I'm no different than you. When I get a love offering, I tithe on that. If I get gifts, I've got to do the same things that you do. But do you understand that when we don't tithe, and young people, every single one of you ought to tithe. It doesn't matter what, but if everybody in this church tithe, served, volunteer, if everybody did what they ought to do as a church member, you could build anything you wanted to build. Now that's the truth. But see, we think that if we don't tithe this week, well, think if about 500 people decided not to tithe. Guys, it doesn't belong to you. Hello? It belongs to, and remember, he only asked you to give 10% because he knew he probably couldn't get that. He could have said, give me 90, you keep 10. I love him. I like the 90 part, but if you're listening, say I am. So you need to understand that faith, ready? It's the confidence in God, and it always leads to obedience to God. So I want to challenge you. Tithe every week. Serve every week. VBS is coming up. Can you believe that? We have 2,500 kids at our VBS. Are you ready? And our church is just big, but can I go ahead and tell you? We never, ever have to beg for volunteers. We got plenty. Our pastor has never preached on tithing. You want to know why? Because our people give. So everybody say faith. Leads to actions. Obedience. Write this down. Real faith, I love this, is based on what God says. I love this part, but it's demonstrated by what we do. Let me say it again. Real faith, are you ready? Real faith, and I like this, is based on His word, what He says, but it's demonstrated by what we do. You need to write this down. Faith always has to have an object. Faith, can I tell you what object of faith is for Jeremy? It's his son. That's his object. Right now, his faith is trying to believe that God's going to heal him. God's going to, whatever it takes, God will use the doctors, medicine, whatever it is. Now, the object of faith is his son, but he's putting his faith in. If you're listening, say I am. So faith is a real thing. And I'm going to show you just in a few moments. Write this down. I love this statement. Faith is not a luxury. Faith is a necessity. Faith is not a luxury. Faith is a necessity. And I want you to listen, because I love preaching here. I love coming out. I don't know how, Jeremy, he gets to do it all. He loves it. And right now, I want you to listen. He's stronger than he's ever been. And you need to understand, are you ready for this? God will test your faith. The devil will tempt your faith. I'm going to say that again. God will test your faith, but the devil will tempt your faith. He will tempt you to doubt, to look at circumstances, to look at your finances. I'm just telling you, 35 years ago, I stepped out. I was a worship leader and a youth pastor, and God called me into evangelism. 35 years later, I'm traveling 280, 300 days out of the year, and I have to live by faith. I'm not guaranteed anything. The bottom line is this: I don't live any different than you. Everybody in this room. But if your faith is in your job, you could lose your job. There goes your faith. If your faith is in your marriage, you could lose that. If your faith is in a person, and that person could go away. Our faith has to be in God and His word. That's faith. So if you're listening, say I am. Are you ready? Faith is a real thing in our life. See, the problem in America, faith is what you can't see. And people want to see God. And by the way, you'll never see God without. You'll never know God without. You'll never be saved without. You can't even please God without. So everybody say faith is real. All right, here we go. Why do we need faith? Go to Hebrews chapter 11, look at verse 6. Look at this. I love this. So you see, it isn't, I'd underline something here. It's impossible to please God without. Yeah, I'm not really hard of hearing. I'm just making sure everybody's got it. Without. Look at this. You cannot please God without. And here's the deal. And as I preach, and I'm going to preach this a little different than I did in the first one, because I'm going to take a little more time. I know you can't believe that. I mean, if you're in a hurry to get Taco Tico or whatever, you're in bad shape. Watch this. Do you understand that faith is what God, he looks at two things. He looks at your, and he looks at your. Those are the two things God's concerned about. In this church, if we have a heart for God, we love him with all our heart, everything we got, God looks at that. And then he looks at our faith. Is your faith strong? Is it little? Is it weak? You see, by the way, you only have to have the faith of a little rinky-dink seed. And are you ready for this? That little seed will grow an incredible tree. And guys, can I tell you, Jeremy, him and I have walked through this. In fact, the other night, my road manager printed off at my house everything that Jeremy has journaled and text. It's that thick. My wife and I are going to put together a journal for him, or actually we're going to put together, some kind of an album. We're going to put pictures in there, everything that we've taken, because this is what I'm believing, that Trey's going to look at this, and can you imagine the story that he's going to have? Everybody say faith. Look at this. So we need faith. Everybody say we need faith to please God. I didn't do this at the first group. Go, if you would, to verse 7. When I pause, would you speak? It was by that Noah built an ark to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God, who warned him about something that had never happened. He couldn't see it. But watch this. By his faith, he condemned the rest of the world and was made right in God's sight. Are you ready? Noah was building he was building his faith. Are you ready? He wasn't building an ark. Noah was building his, God, this is good stuff right here. If I was in a Pentecostal church, somebody would be yelling right now. He was building he went to his wife and said to his family, hey, we're building a boat in the desert. What's a boat? I don't know. But we're building it. Why? Water is coming from up there. I know we've never seen it, but we're doing it. So he was building everybody say faith. This is what I think is incredible. We're building the same thing. We're telling people when we go to church, when we share our faith, are you ready? I love this. Dave, I love this. We're telling people, you better get saved. Because we ain't ever seen it happen, but like that water that came, Jesus is coming. And can I go ahead and tell you, unbelief is watching you and I build our. If you read this in Matthew, it says this: while Noah was building his boat, or his faith or ark, watch this. When he was building his faith, all the people, they were partying, they were drinking, getting married, they were like nothing was going on, and he was trying to tell them. And then when the flood came, are you ready? Unbelief watched faith being built. Now dig on this. And all of a sudden, when unbelief saw that what he said was true, they wanted to get on the boat, but it was too late. Faith pleases God. If you're listening, say I am. Go to Ephesians chapter 2. Go quickly. Look at this. Ephesians chapter 2. For you that don't have your Bibles, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, God bless you, I guess. I don't know. Love you. Just bring the book. It looks good. Go to Ephesians chapter 2. Here's why we need faith, not just to please God, but here's why we need faith. Ephesians 2:8. For by grace you are saved through, which is not of your or works that any man should, but faith is everybody say gift. Are you ready? Faith is a gift of God. Are you ready? We need faith to please God, but more than anything, we need faith to be saved. I was in Joplin, Missouri. If you know what happened there, say yes. 2 years ago, I was at Calvary Baptist just a couple weeks ago. The pastor there is a good friend. In fact, he was saved. Are you ready? In 1997, he was saved under my ministry. He's now pastored 2 or 3 churches. 2 years ago, he went to Calvary Baptist in Joplin. 2 weeks after he was there, can you imagine? His church is only running 67. It was dying. 2 weeks after he was there, that tornado hit. They gave me 2 books that were written, 32 minutes in Joplin. That tornado was on the ground for 32 minutes. And I saw the destruction. 2 years later, Calvary Baptist, I was just there 2 weeks ago. We had over 129 people come to Christ. They baptized 68 of them. They baptized even more since I've been gone. Are you ready? On Tuesday night, I preached my message on the heart, and the 33-year-old wife, I think Cherie is her name, he's the student pastor's wife, stands up, and I thought she didn't understand what I was saying. But she stood up, she was weeping. She said, Brother Ken, when I knelt down to pray, I knelt down to pray for me. Here's what she said. I knew I didn't have real faith. She said, I knew all about God in my head, kind of like my son. In fact, I showed Jeremy's clip, his little story that I share when I travel. And bottom line is, she said, like your son, I always knew about God in my head. But I never had a passion. I never had a love. I never had none of that in my heart. And I knew I was lost. And a couple of Tuesday nights ago, she gave her life to Jesus Christ. A weight was lifted because she finally got the gift of faith. So you need to listen. Faith, are you ready? We need faith to please God, but we need faith to be saved. So if you're listening, say I am. Everybody say faith. So let me read it out of mind. God saved you by a special favor. Everybody say grace. When you believed. Everybody say faith. You can't take credit for this because faith is a gift from God. Look at verse 9. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done. None of us can boast about it, for we are God's masterpiece. He's created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can't. Are you ready? When we get saved by faith, then we begin to do works. Are you ready? You're not saved by works, but I love making this statement. God gives us faith that works. I don't know how people do it. I don't know. When Trey, January the 8th, leaned over to Emily and said, Mom, am I going to die? Can you imagine that question? 6 years old. I mean, if I'm 6, I'm going to ask, when do I get out of here? I mean, can I have ice cream for a year? His statement, his question is, when Emily said to him, God's not done with you. And Trey says to her mom, but I'm not a Christian. January the 8th, 2012, are you ready? A little 6-year-old boy found out what faith can do. Everybody say faith. It works. Say faith. It's real. Do me a favor, turn to Mark chapter 6. Go quickly. I'm looking at the time. Does anybody really care? Are y'all okay? Yeah, I know I look so much like Jeremy, don't I? He's got a beard. Wait till you see him. I thought he was going to be Santa. I don't know. But look, Mark chapter 6. Jeremy loves this church. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. Jeremy ain't going nowhere. He's here for life. And he's going to get some offers. I have guys all the time asking me, I said, you know what, you can ask him, but he ain't going anywhere. He loves Newcastle First Baptist Church. My son could be anywhere, but he's at one of the safest places that I know. This church has become a great church, great worship, great leadership, great staff. You've got some great people. He's put the pieces together, but we cannot waver in our. You can't let a budget be your faith. You can't let a building. Are you ready? Our faith has got to be Jesus. Are you ready for this? Don't look at it, but I'll tell you the story. Mark chapter 5. Let me show you about faith. 3 stories. Mark chapter 5. You don't have to turn to it, but here's the first story. There's a demon-possessed man. That's the whole chapter. This demon-possessed man, young people, would cut himself. They chained him up. It's kind of like teenagers today that are chained with drugs and sex and alcohol. I mean, we got kids getting drunk every weekend in Newcastle. Kids, they'll get drunk and go to church, but they're in chains. And this dude would cut himself. He would break the chains. He would holler and scream. And finally, one day, Jesus showed up. And this demon-possessed man, he had a little bit of, I know he did. Because when he saw Jesus, he fell at Jesus' feet. Even the demons recognized who Jesus was. And Jesus, I love this story, cast the demons, a legion of them, cast them all out and put them into some pigs. And then that's why I don't eat hot dogs. I'm figuring if Jesus put demons into pork, I don't need pork. I'm just giving you a hard time, but I would not eat another hot dog. I would boycott hot dogs. If you knew what was in a hot dog, you would never touch one. You wouldn't even walk by it. This is funny to me. So he puts it into the pigs, and about 2,000 pigs, they're all dead. But the demon-possessed man had a little bit of, and he was set free. Because he went to the right person. Are you ready? And then all the religious people, they got upset. Can you believe that, Jesus? He sets that demon possessed, he's free. But look what he did to the pigs. I'm thinking, dude, go get a cow. If you're listening, say I am. The demon-possessed man begins to follow Jesus. All of a sudden, Jesus leaves, and a crowd of people are following him. And this guy by the name of Jairus, he was a desperate dad who came to Jesus for his dying daughter, kind of like what Jeremy's doing. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, the desperate dad fell at Jesus' feet like the demon-possessed man, and he looked up. And he said, Jesus, by the way, this dude had a lot of, see, the demon-possessed man, I think he had a little bit, but the daddy had a whole lot of. And he looked up and he said, Jesus, I believe if you could get to my house that you could heal my daughter. She's dying. So Jesus heads on. Jesus is walking. While he's walking, hundreds of people are walking with him. They're touching him. They're bumping into him. And finally, this woman, a diseased woman. We got a demon-possessed man, a desperate dad, a dying daughter. Now you got a diseased woman. And this woman had bled for 12 years. You can read it. It's in Mark 5. You can read the whole story. She bled for 12 years of her life. And she went to every doctor, did everything she could do, exhausted. We're not there yet. We're still there. We're doing everything we can. But here's the bottom line. Instead of getting better, she got worse. And finally, she ran out of money. So she heard about Jesus. She's crawling on her hands. I mean, literally, she's crawling on her hands and knees, and she's trying to get to Jesus. I mean, they're stepping on him, then stepping on her. They're kicking. I'm sure she got dirt in her mouth. Finally, she gets close enough, and all she wanted to do was touch the hem of his garment. You see, the demon-possessed man had a little bit of. The desperate dad, he had a whole lot of. But let me tell you about this woman that bled for 12 years. She had incredibly great. And her bleeding stopped instantly. She knew she had been healed. So she walked away. She didn't want to cause a commotion. And Jesus, he's so cool. Jesus stopped. He said, somebody touch me. And everybody around him, Jesus, we're all touching you. Touch, touch, touch. We're touching you. Are you ready? But somebody touched Jesus with their, don't stop listening. Guys, can I go ahead and tell you? Right now, everything may be going good for you. But James chapter 1, verse 2 says, consider it all or pure joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your, are you ready? You may not be going through a trial or a test right now, but it's coming. And when it does, we're going to read something I didn't read in the first service already. When that trial comes or that test, you're going to find out what kind of faith you have. See, right now, Cynthia McMahon, she needs some incredible. Her husband needs even more. Already, Jeremy and Emily need some awesome. See, when I preach this, I want the faith of that woman. I want the faith of that dad. I see this lady in this wheelchair all covered up. She's got her Bible open. I mean, we got people in this room that can walk and run, lap, but we can't bring our Bible. You know why? Because this book has been an incredible book in her life. Everybody say faith. So finally, the woman says, she comes to Jesus because he wasn't letting her go. Somebody touched me. She falls at his feet like the dead and the demon-possessed man, because this woman had great. And Jesus, she said to Jesus, I touched you. And you know what Jesus said in Mark 5? Because of you're healed. Now, all of that, are you ready? I've only seen a few people really healed in my life. But if I saw a demon-possessed man set free, if I saw, oh, by the way, when he finished, he didn't forget Jairus, because Jesus never forgets. And he headed on to Jairus' house, his dying daughter. He got all the religious people out of there because they were doubting. And he healed her. If I saw a daughter raised from the dead like that, a woman who had bled for 12 years, maybe had a disease and it was gone, man, wouldn't you want more of that? Yes or no? Well, let me show you are you ready? I want to show you the enemy of our faith. Here it is. It's killing our church. It's killing our homes. Look at this. Chapter 6 in Mark. Go there. Let me give you the greatest enemy. Jesus left that part of the country, returned with his disciples to Nazareth, his hometown. The next Sabbath, he began teaching in the synagogue. Look at this. And many who heard him were astonished, and they asked, where did he get all the wisdom, the power to perform these miracles? He's just a carpenter, the son of Mary. And he goes on to talk about that. And then he says this. The religious people were deeply offended and refused to believe in him. So Jesus told them this in verse 4. A prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown and among his relatives and his own family. But look at verse 5. And because of their lack of faith, because of their little faith, mine says because of their, everybody say unbelief. Watch this. Because of their unbelief, their lack of faith, look what Jesus said. He couldn't do any mighty miracles among them except to place hands on a few sick people and heal them. And look at verse 6. And he was amazed at their lack of faith. Look at that, Dave. He was amazed. Young people, look at their unbelief. I can't wait to be back in October. I'm going to be a part of your Disciple Now. I can't wait we're going to have a kicking time. We're going to mess up that school even more than it's already. We're going to mess it up in a good way. This, young people, if you ever get this kind of faith as a teenager, you're going to change your school. You're going to change a lot of things around you. I want you to listen. Jesus said, I wanted to do more, but I couldn't because of unbelief. Write it down. The number one killer of faith is unbelief. I want to tell you quickly, and then I'm going to show you how faith works, and we're done. Look at this. Unbelief does 2 or 3 things. Here's the first. Unbelief creates doubt. Write it down. When you find yourself doubting God, I'm going to tell you, Jeremy was there. He'll tell you. He's transparent. He's not there now. Jeremy probably has more peace than he's ever had. He's not worried. He's not afraid. He's not. The other day when his temperature went to 107, all that went down, Jeremy said we had peace. They rushed him from the room to the emergency room, and he's fine. So you have to understand that faith doesn't cause panic. That's unbelief. Write this down. Unbelief creates doubt. Here's the second thing. Doubt brings distractions. We're going to talk about that tonight. Doubt brings distractions. You do not want to miss my message tonight. I haven't preached it hardly at all. It's just, and I really believe it'll be for your church. Here's the third thing. Distractions breed discouragement. Jeremy, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think Emily did, but Jeremy found himself there. Because you know what Jeremy's thinking? How is it I can pray for other people? How is it I can help them? But I need it. I said, Jeremy, let me just go ahead and tell you this. I said, you need to tell yourself what you tell somebody else. How many of you, Jeremy has prayed with you or counseled with you at any point? Raise your hand. How many of you, he's given you some encouragement? Are you ready? I told him, whatever he told you, tell yourself. It's not easy to do. So you got to watch this. Faith creates doubt. Or unbelief creates doubt. Doubt brings distractions. Distractions breed discouragement. And here's the final thing that unbelief does. Discouragement causes you to quit. Now, I don't know where Cynthia is today, but I'm going to tell you, she's a strong person in faith. When I was here in September and she was up in the choir, you know what she told me at Jeremy's house? She said, I just wanted to live at least through this revival. And she got to counsel and lead some people to Jesus Christ. That is real faith. I mean, I get strength. Now watch. Discouragement causes you to quit. This church was built on. It's going to grow in. Listen, when you tithe, when you serve, when you're committed, when you're involved, I want to tell you, all of this is because people live in there. And this is what scares me. There are some of you here, it doesn't bother you not to tithe. It doesn't bother you. You might come Sunday morning and that's about it. And let me tell you, if that's all you're getting, you ought to be Sunday nights. And when there's so many things going on, and you know why you go to church? It's to strengthen, to build up your... Man, if you're doing it once a week, you got stupid faith. Guys, I don't know about you, but if I fill up my car with gas, and I only do it once a month, guess what's going to happen eventually? I'm going to run out of gas. I was with this pastor. He picked me up. We were running late. My flight got in late. He picked me up. We were heading to the church, and I looked. The little light came on. It was a man. If the man could talk, we need gas. The light was beaming. I saw empty. The pastor's just driving. We went by 3 gas stations. I said, dude, we need gas. And here's what he said to me. Dude, I got faith. I said, let me tell you what we need right now. We don't need faith. We need fuel. I said, if we run out of gas, I'm not preaching. And if I do, I'm going to talk about you. Can I tell you? Faith is what you can't see, but I saw the gas stations. Everybody say faith. Are you ready? Unbelief, Jeremy's been here, sees obstacles. Are you ready? Faith sees opportunities. An opportunity to trust. An opportunity to witness. Are you ready? Unbelief sees problems. Faith sees potential. Every week, wherever I go, tomorrow night, I'm in Center, Texas. I'm doing a one-night rally with something. Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm in Godley, Texas. That's a good place to be. And I'm speaking in some schools. They're going to my camp next summer, and they're bringing me in. A few weeks ago, I was in Joplin. When I finished there, he said, dude, I don't even know what we're going to give you. They gave me an incredible offering. I cried when he gave me the check because I didn't think... And I left there and I went to Indiana and I went to a church that was running 500. They're now running about 250. They had to get rid of a lot of staff. And he said, dude, I'm bringing you in because we had over 40 something people saved, almost 50. The church was packed for as packed as it could be. I just talked to him just a while ago and he said, man, we baptized more, after you were gone. And he said, it was incredible. I left there to drive about 17 hours from Indiana. On Sunday at 2 a.m, we got up, my road manager, my wife, and his wife, we got in the vehicle. We left at 2 a.m. to drive to Cooper, Texas. It's up by Paris, Texas. We drove 17 hours, left at 2 in the morning. I stayed awake the whole time, keep him awake. And we got there at 4:30 in the afternoon. I showered at 5. I was preaching at 7. I finished at 7. We had 80 people saved that night. When I finished, we got in our car, left about 11 o'clock to go home to San Antonio. I'd rather be in my bed. Got in at 5:30 in the morning. Can I go ahead and tell you? Every day I have a journey of, I never know what I'm going to walk into. I never know what I'm going to get. See, here's the deal. I deserve hell. I told my wife, I said, babe, we're going to tithe no matter what. Well, we can't afford. I said, we can't afford not to. Are you hearing me? If everybody in this church tithed, used their talents. You almost have a women's choir up here, by the way. I just noticed. There's some wimpy men out in this room. There's some of you guys that ought to be in this. It ought to be filled. But you know why? It's because your faith is not what it ought to be. Because if your faith is in Jesus, your faith is in His Word, then everything, and listen, this choir ought to add more chairs. That's why I'm not a pastor. I'd fire some people. I'm just telling you right now. I'd give them a hot dog. Here, I love you. Eat that. Are you ready? Now watch. Faith works. And right now, everything I'm preaching, this church needs to hear. Are you ready? Jeremy said it. He ain't going nowhere. And this church is doing incredible. You think he misses being here? You think he misses preaching? But right now, his faith has got him in a different place. And this church has been gracious. But you want to encourage your pastor who ain't going nowhere. And God's not done with Trey. You want to encourage? Tithe, serve, be involved, volunteer, be at everything this church has. Don't miss out, because when you miss out on this, you're missing out on some more faith. I'll close with this. In fact, do me a favor. Go back to 1 Peter. Go quickly. It's now past 11:50. I ought to do another video and say, told you so. Go to this real quickly, and then I promise you. You're about to hear. I'm going to cry when he sings it, but you're about to hear, and they're going to do it tonight. Again, go to 1 Peter chapter 1. Let me show you. Real faith involves actions and works. When you get a chance, read James chapter 2. It says faith without works is dead, works without faith is dead. But let me show you what faith is about. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. All honor to God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. For it is by His boundless mercy that God has given us the privilege of being born again. Now we live with a wonderful expectation because Jesus Christ rose again from the dead. Verse 4. For God has reserved a priceless inheritance for His children. It is kept in heaven for you, pure and undefiled, beyond the reach of change and decay. Verse 5, and God, in His mighty power, will protect you until you receive this salvation because you are trusting Him. If it will be revealed on the last day for all to see. Now, write this down. If you're going to live by faith, write it down. And I would put this phrase that I'm about to give you somewhere on your dashboard of your car, on your bathroom mirror. I'd put this on your desk where you could see this. Are you ready? If you're going to live by faith, then expect your faith to be tested. If you're going to live by faith, expect your faith to be tested. And then write this down. A faith that can't be tested can't be trusted. I'm going to say it again. A faith that can't be tested can't be trusted. Guys, it's a given. We've never had any tragedy in our family at all. None. I was just talking to a lady. I texted about 20 people Jeremy's deal that I read to you. Her name is Vicki Miller. They have a son, Drew. Drew grew up in one of the godliest homes ever. Drew got messed up in drugs and sex, you name it, jail, and drugs almost killed him. He's now in a rehab in California, going on his second year, and he's clean. She said, I'm praying for Trey. And here's what I said to Vicky. I said, isn't it funny that drugs almost killed your son, but yet Trey needs some drugs to save his life? It's funny how faith works. You see, they were having faith that he'd get off drugs. We're having faith that some of these drugs, God's going to use something to raise Trey back up. A faith that can't be tested, can't be. Read on with me, verse 6. There's wonderful joy ahead. I gave this to Jeremy months ago. Even though it is necessary for you to endure many trials for a while. Look at verse 7. These trials are only to test to show that it is strong and pure. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold. And your faith, look at this, is far more precious to God than mere gold. So if your faith remains strong after being tried by fiery trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and all honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed. Are you ready? Would you say Jeremy's a pretty good preacher? Would you say he's a pretty good dad? Brittany? You got to say that. Would you say he's a pretty good husband? Would you say he's a pretty good teacher? Are you ready? You ain't seen nothing yet. Because the trial that are you ready? His faith is being purified and it's going to be stronger. And he's coming back. Listen, if he comes back wearing a pair of jeans and shoes like I'm wearing and a shirt like mine, he's in. Are you ready? How many of y'all needed to hear this today? Young people, I did a camp in Orange Beach. These 3 young men came to me the first day of camp. He said, we've got a guy, his name's Chris. Chris had real long hair, and I don't have any problem with that. But he said, Chris is agnostic, atheist, but he's something. Nothing. All 3 of these boys paid for this guy to go to camp. The camp was almost $400, and they each paid to get him to go to camp. And the dude went. I said, well, how'd you get him here? He said, well, first of all, it was a beach. Okay, what else? Well, we said there's going to be girls on the beach, in the water, bikinis, and food. The dude said, I'm in. He said, how much is it going to cost? And they said, we're paying for it. I'm definitely in. First 2 nights, I watched him a little bit. You could tell he was uncomfortable. And on the 3rd night, I had a door up on the stage, Jesus being the door. And that night, I opened up the door. And I said, if you'd like to be saved tonight, I want you to get up out of your seat, walk through that door, and somebody's going to pray with you. And sure enough, Chris stood up just weeping. I watched his 3 buddies, like you guys right now. Good-sized boys. I watched them. And they couldn't believe it. They all 3 fell to their face. Their youth group just hovered around those guys. They'd been witnessing to this guy for 4 years. And they got him to a camp. Bikinis, girls, food, beach. That's why he came. And when he walked through that door, he crumpled. And he said, I just want to be saved. And you know what helped him get saved? It was his 3 friends and there are some people out there, their marriages are falling apart. There are young people you go to school with that are one car wreck, one party away from their eternity. And Dave, they don't read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They read us. In your neighborhood, on your teams, at your jobs. People are looking. Are you ready? Noah wasn't building a boat or an ark. He was building his. And when you go to school tomorrow, you're going to be building your faith. Well, there's that girl. She's still a virgin. What's up with that? Well, I just want you to know that I believe in purity. I'm saving myself for God's man. She's building her. Why won't those guys go to the party and get drunk with us? Because they're building their. See, you have to understand this. Faith works through you and me.